Good evening, everyone, and good morning, Vipin and Russ. On behalf of All India Orclusis Group, I would like to welcome you to our AIOG Wednesday Knowledge Share for Growth sessions. I hope everyone at your end, including you, are safe. Today is a memorable day for us. We have Vipin Samar, a great supporter of our community, especially AIOG. Thanks, Vipin, for all your support. How many of you attended Vipin's keynote speech at Sangam 18, right? If you don't know Vipin, if you're seeing first time Vipin, I'll introduce a couple of lines. So Vipin Samar is Senior Vice President of Development for Database Security at Oracle. Over the last 25 years, he has been developing security technologies for operating systems, networks, identity management, and databases. He led the security development team at Oracle, create most comprehensive security platform and innovative at furious places. Pace. Vipin has a master degree in computer science from SUNY at Stony Brook, in New York, and a bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering from BITS Pilani, India. And one of the thing, because he has 12 patents on the area of security and information retrieval. I'm trying to submit one patent for last 5 years. Okay, so he wants 12 patents. Okay, and as you know, today is a very special day for AIOG community. Today we are launching a security special interest group with the support of Vipin and his team. Uh, the SIG is, let me go through this one. So this is just to cover. What is SIG? So SIG is a special interest group. It's a part of All India Orclusis Group with a shared interest in security and privacy. It's you can think of it's a dedicated group for security professionals, or maybe whether you want to learn about security, and here you come and share, learn, and grow your security space, knowledge space. And basically, this forum helps you to connect, network, and meet with security professionals, especially from Vipin's team. So we have a lot of product managers, and they're going to support us throughout this journey, right? So that's more of security, and as you know, we always bring more benefits to our members, especially for platinum and gold members. We are using a Facebook workplace platform for our knowledge sharing and networking platform. I don't know how many of you already using a Facebook workplace. This is an excellent platform. Connect anytime, anywhere, on any device, right? I'll show you the portal in very quick tour on the portal. But what we are trying to do is, this is a closed platform. You can come and talk to product managers, and we can have some informal way of talking. Maybe we can select a day. I think currently I'm working with Vipin's team, especially with Manish. We can select particular day, and just come in and informal chat, right? So it's not really focus on Oracle. Maybe you can just come up with some security concerns, and here are the experts can share and learn from you, right? So let me quickly share my screen on what is I'm talking about SIG. um, Vinay, can you confirm? Can you see my screen, or is it still a presentation?
We can see your screen on the side, the presentation.
Okay, so that means because I only shared my. Sorry for that. So let me quickly. Okay, so if you're not first time you're saying it's not a public Facebook page. So this is called Facebook Workplace, and especially you can see a lot of members are in this place, and many are already joined. If you are part of our membership, please join. Otherwise, you can touch with us. So basically, we have created a special interest group on multiple areas, and luckily we have a security as a first SIG we are launching with Vipin. And you can see that Manish Chaudhary is a product manager. He already loaded a lot of good content. So what is the purpose of this platform is, for example, there's a content here, you can always ask questions, right? So he can come in once in a week. It depends on the time availability. He can say, and he can help you, right? So a lot of things we can do in this platform. And also you can chat, you can directly chat with people. And going forward, what we will do is we will do a something like live video, so all people can come into one call, and we can talk about that security concepts or use cases. And we will also bring a lot of customer presentations, and you can also share similar way. So it's like a platform we are using. So with that, I'm actually asking, I'll request, by the way, very warm welcome, Vipin. Please um, give us some your view on this platform, how we are going to get benefit.
Thank you, Sai. First of all, really, I'm very excited to be part of this launch. As I was saying, this is the first thing that you are creating, and I'm honestly honored that the first topic you chose was actually security. Security is indeed topic of the day and would remain there for many years. This is not going to go away. And I think the value of this platform really is for everybody to be able to come together. And as I said, this is a closed group, which means that you can ask your questions freely. I've seen that for security, people are concerned, hey, if I ask this question, would the other guys know what I'm asking and then try to attack me? So that's why the value of being closed, besides other values, also that you are free to ask what you want. I have my team fully supporting you. I have a few PMs in India actually. So in your own time zone. Otherwise, sometimes you ask a question and you hear back like in some other time zone that may not really help. But here we have people on the ground there, both on the PM side and the development side. So even they may also join in to help answer any questions. And what I have typically seen is that these questions are typically around like best practices and tips and techniques. So that would actually benefit everybody. So I think it's great, Sai, that AI OUG has taken this step to create a SIG for security. So I'm so excited. Congratulations.
Uh, Thanks a lot, Vipin. I think this is the only way we can actually because database and Oracle itself, it's a huge many products, right? So we want to basically help whoever is interested in the security space, and we have created this space, right? So they can focus on that security, and that way we can help them in career perspective professionally, right? So and thanks a lot. I really thank Manish. He's really helping me for last 1 week. Thanks for that. So with that, handing over to Vipin for the today's presentation. Secure cloud and on-premises database just become as easy as 1, 2, 3. And also warm welcome for Russ. He's also joining from USA. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai. And let me just share my screen. You guys see it?
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
can put it in
great.
a full mode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just taking its time. Yeah. So before I start, I think thanks for the introduction, Sai, and also one second, why is this not going to work? And happy Engineers Day, by the way. Yesterday was Engineers Day in India, and I kind of again kind of these is go back years and years, but certainly India is a land of thinkers and tinkerers, and there's like continuous tinkering happening in thoughts and ideas and innovation. And certainly from security perspective, we kind of always have to be on our toes, trying to make sure that we are covering the ground as much as we can. Um, so today I want to speak about how do you go about securing your databases, which have pretty much all of your core security assets. and make it as easy as possible. I mean, often security and usability and convenience, they don't quite go hand in hand. And today I'll take a step back, and I know that most of the members are actual tinkers, and they like to play with stuff and get hands on, get hands dirty, and do all that. But today I would just kind of request a little pause, say, okay, let's kind of step up also, just a bit, and see what are we trying to tackle with here. Joining me today is also Russ Lowenthal. He's the Senior Director of Database Security, PM. And he's one guy in the world, if I may say so, has helped many, many thousands of customers on database security, from deployments to POCs to demos to question answers, everything. So I'm glad that he's able to join, and he'll help us give some demos and maybe answer questions if there are any. All right. So let me start. So as I said, I think I'll just kind of give a broad view into what's happening in the world today. And I'm sure you know some of these things, but kind of always good to put them in perspective, bring them together for us to make some uh, 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 decisions, right? So this is no news. I'm sure that number of data breaches are just doubling. They doubled again. And this is what we know of. There are many that are not even reported. So it's fair to say that we continue to live in a very world where hackers dominate, and they're interested in your data because your data is interesting. It is core assets. Um, and this is just from last year, but even before that, we have seen this immense constant drumbeat of breaches happening worldwide. And certainly, whether it's your Equifax data or Yahoo data or eBay, Marriott, all this stuff all world around. And we don't just lose few users. The databases today are becoming huge, terabytes of data. So when you lose something, you lose a bunch. And this thing, I don't know if this is going to slow down. In fact, it's more like hackers have hacked these multiple times, and it's really maybe time for them that they'll connect all the dots together, and then it would be a difficult thing for us to recover from. Uh, so, uh, uh, survey was done about what is the importance of security. So I'm not surprised at this number that 80% of all enterprises respond that security and compliance are their top concerns. Has to be, because you have your customer data, your user data, and who wants to lose that data to hackers, right? So I'm not surprised that this is a top requirement of everybody. And we ran a survey. What was surprising really for us to was to see that customers use over 100 discrete cybersecurity controls. I'm sure you're all thinking, really? Do we use 100 plus maybe? Now, if you think about it, all the network security controls, the VPN, the authentication, the multi-factor authentication, your web servers, your application servers, your database servers, right? How you talk to your payment gateways, how about your supply chain, the contractors, identity management systems, and each of them is a target. And guess what? By the time you end up securing them all, you're looking at more than 100. More than 100. That's what it is. And then enters the cloud. Let me just read some of this one, right? The differences between cloud and on-premises environments have led directly to the acquisition of additional discrete controls, introducing additional complexity. Things don't get simple because now you have to worry about two different attack environments. Whatever you knew about your own environment, you got to think about the other environments. And if you're on multiple cloud, that multiplies your complexity even more. Each cloud is different from what they offer, and hence you have to cover up for the gaps that they may have, and this introduces newer and newer tools. And people say that 70% of our research participants shared that too many specialized tools are required to secure their public cloud footprints. So number of tools just multiplied, number of types of tools just multiplied, how they manage multiplied, everything is becoming complex. And to add to that, the standards and regulations are continuing on. They're not making it easy for you. So you got to defend from the attackers, got to make sure that your auditors are happy, which means complying more and more, adding more and more rules and checks and tools. It never ends. And many rules are here like GDPR, PCI, they are global, but pretty much every single country, India included, you got your own privacy rules, your own government rules for every single sector. And this is no different, whether it's US or India, Brazil, Russia, everywhere, it's the same problem. So of course, people are investing money in it. Gartner projects that this year it is, I think, $150 billion would be invested in security. $150 billion or more, and growing at, I think, 12% or something like that. Now, so why are the bad guys winning? Aren't we investing enough? It's not about investing enough. I mean, as you look at it, if you are the person who's trying to defend, you got to defend every single nook and corner, starting from your networks and server operating systems and your desktops and mobile, and making sure that people are not downloading anything funny on those machines or on your phones, and protecting your front facing web servers, application servers, which are hosting all kinds of, from Java to multiple architectures out there, and databases, Oracle, non-Oracle, different editions, different releases. Look at the complexity. Users, your own customers, your partners, your people whom you have full control over, people whom you don't have control over, the payment systems, the supply chain systems, the VPN, the custom applications which were built by you long time back. Perhaps those developers are long gone. Packaged applications on which you have no control. And this list goes on. So a hacker can hack any one of them to get into your system. And once they get into one system, then they move laterally. Very well known. Now, if you are the defender, you need to defend them all, right? So hacker needs to win once. Defenders, we need to protect from each and every such attack. It's not surprising, bad guys are winning. And also note that they have all the more tools. They have more tools, right? And if you look at uh, and if you look at on the other side, on the defender side, we don't have time, we don't have people also, right? And I don't know, it just I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm sure I'm not the first guy to think of this in this particular fashion. This is the cyber world. In the real physical world today, we face a similar problem, right? And we do various things to protect ourselves. It could be hand washing, could be wearing your mask, could be social distancing, could be not touching your face and your eyes, doing quarantine, social isolation if we get in trouble, tracing, so on and so forth. And the virus keeps evolving, it keeps coming at us from different angles, and we need to protect all of these areas. And the problem always is that we don't have enough doctors or hospitals or equipments or medicines to take care of everybody. It's a very scarce resource, but it's kind of, the one in real world is perhaps more dangerous and is causing a lot more economic damage and social damage to the fabric of the society. But I mean, just to kind of make it clear that security, there's no single solution to these things. Security is also one of them. So it's a difficult problem. Uh, so, so I think organizations, we need to pause and rethink really how not to lose this asymmetric warfare. I call it asymmetric because the bad guys seem to have all the tools and time and power. And on the defending side, we don't quite know where they are, what they'll do. And even if we are hacked, we don't really know that, right? Now, from our side, it really is that, as I was saying before, hackers need to succeed once, but we need to defend successfully every single time. It's a tall ask, and we need to defend the full landscape and comply with regulations. And this we gotta do with not much time, not enough people, but our assets are multiplying every single day. Everybody wants to go online. And security industry, though I'm from that industry, I hate to say that, but they all want to help. But guess what's happening? This industry has the most number of tools that they offer. It has most number of companies, most number of startups, and large and the small, and they are completely very fragmented industry. And they would want you to certainly believe that every issue you have, that's the biggest issue, every issue. And of course, hackers can come from every single place, so they want you to cover every single thing. So tons and tons of discrete tools are there, and each tool comes with its own management rules and repositories and users and framework, bells, whistles, the whole thing. Remember, there's only one security administrator, or one or a few maybe, one for DBA, one for databases, one for network, one for applications. Certainly, it is still very, very few. So how do you deal with this kind of complexity? And there are really roadblocks to this continuous solid defense is what needed, but there are roadblocks. And I think it's very clear the growing complexity and increasing tools is really a big roadblock because we just can't keep up. The talent pool is shrinking because how do you have anybody who knows about everything? Not possible. We don't have time because every day open means auditors would complain and hackers get their day. And the other one that I really see is that people are kind of ignoring the risk management principles. What this means is that if you go and talk to a bank when they give you loan, they come up with the risk management that do you have appropriate assets? Do you have collateral? Do you think that you'll pay back? And then only then they give you loan. That's called kind of minimizing your risk. And same thing we need to apply for all the assets we have. Which assets we think are the most valuable, that we cannot let go of them under any circumstances, and which, yes, it's bad, but if I have to pick and choose, I know what I'm gonna pick. That principle I think is very, very important, especially when you have to defend this huge layout of resources and technology that's out there. So just to summarize, we have a problem. It's asymmetric warfare, lots and lots of tools, and huge roadblocks. So, so before I go into the 1, 2, 3 part, the easy part, I think it's also important to share what the story we have. And and certainly from Oracle perspective, we want to believe that we have protected you. There are multiple layers of security. Maybe there's an outer shell, there's an inner shell. You can reduce attack surface by hiding your head inside the shell, and you can defend yourself in multiple ways, right? But it is still a journey, right? The way we like to think of security is that there really you need to think about the core asset that you are trying to protect. And data, I believe, I was talking about risk management, data I believe is your most sensitive asset in your company. And data lives in databases. So people, those of you who are on the call, and you manage databases, you are the stewards of your data. You are the protectors. It's very, very key, right? And the users who get to their databases, there could be the administrators, there could be application users. They are connecting, and hackers know that. So for them, those could be the prime targets. Now, thinking in terms of security alone, we like divide them up. There are no rings, as we call them; they're just zones of security. You gotta first assess. You gotta know what you got, how secure you are, what do you have in your databases, uh, who are your users. So this way, you know what you gotta deal with. Second, you gotta detect attacks when they happen, right? If you know something has happened, I know you gotta run some tests in the real physical world, but the real breach or you know something has happened kind of comes after 14 days typically, right? But if you have early detection, you can do stuff. And then you gotta prevent attacks from succeeding. And this is the where most number of tools are there. So in fact, like tools are there in everywhere, but certainly prevention is what we are all looking forward to. So just in terms of thinking, how do you think about security? Kind of assess, detect, prevent. And certainly there's another one called remediate. If you are attacked, what do you actually do there? So that's how you kind of need to think about security. Now, from Oracle side, we have been at it for decades actually, right? And we are perhaps the first ones in many of these areas, whether it is network encryption, use of Kerberos and PKI and transparent data encryption, uh, database cryptographic toolkit, virtual private database, privilege analysis. I mean, we are the first ones. because we anticipate that people who have databases, they are sitting on core assets and they need all the help they can to protect their databases. As I was saying before, attacks can come from all places, but the goal of those attacks is to breach your database. So let's start from the core first, right? And I'm not going to go into these tools and techniques. You are perhaps familiar with many of them. The interesting thing here is that many of these tools are available to everybody. You don't have to buy any extra option or any extra product. But as Russ would tell you that as he goes and talks to customers, not all of them have even implemented these simple things like auditing, right? Like understanding what data you have, understanding the configuration of your databases, and using schema only accounts, and using proxy users instead of logging in directly and sharing your passwords. Simple things, they're all free. But beyond that, we certainly have built a lot more layered functionality on top of it to really help secure your databases. Now, let me just go through this slide quickly just to kind of tell you what else in top of, and how do we layer these controls. So first is certainly the discovery part, whether you're discovering your sensitive data or your users or what the policies you have. And then second comes your encryption. And once you encrypt your data, you got to manage your keys. For that, we got Key Vault. And to limit access to your DBAs, or even to limit access to who can run which commands, kind of this is your multi-factor authorization. People are now talking about multi-factor authentication. We've been talking about multi-factor authorization for last, what, 12, 14 years by now. And we are still the only ones, right? And then we are able to like redact data as it goes back and forth into the database, making sure that the sensitive data doesn't leak out to people, those who don't really need access to it. And as this data goes to your test and dev, hackers know that for every production database, there are 8 copies of test and dev. And if I'm a hacker, I'll go to the place where most copies are available and hack it. So you need to be able to discover the sensitive data if you haven't done it already, and then mask it, right? And then audit your data and monitor activities to your database. So for which we have database firewall, looking at every SQL that goes into your database and blocking it. If I see a SQL injection attack happening, I can block it from happening. If I see some unwarranted traffic going there, I can raise alerts. And all those alerts go into the audit vault, which also collects data from Oracle and non-Oracle databases all into one single repository, right? So it's a bunch of things to cover, and these are also, some tools are embedded inside the database, some are discrete. And on top of that, if you also want to have data security to really make sure that you have control over every single cell, every single row, then we have lots of tools for that too. Virtual private databases, label security, real app security. And I believe that in your last week presentation, he spoke about many of the things that developers are out to do that admins out to do. There's just a broad picture on what's actually available today. So this is what we call as maximum security architecture. And something like this can give you performance, can give you scale and transparency. Now, these are lots and lots of tools. And customers, they don't go crazy on all of them at the same time. They take step by step, right? And again, why I think this is still okay is simply because database is your crown jewel. If you don't do it here, the game is over before the game even begins. That's why this is important. However, we also know that this is not possible for customers, those who don't have all the resources to use these tools and apply them. Though certainly I would encourage them to try it out, but it can be difficult. So there's opportunities for improvement. And that's what this talk really, like the core part of the talk, kind of starts now. Uh, so let's just summarize once again the reasons why databases get breached. And I'm sure you're familiar with all of them, but the first one is misconfigured systems. This is the most common one that we hear about. And the trouble now is that if a system is misconfigured and it's available for probing, people run automated tools and they can instantly tell which of these systems are misconfigured, and then the launch is attacked the very next second. So that's the first thing that people ought to stop from happening. Security patches not applied because it's pretty much well known. People reverse engineer. They now know how to exploit it. If you don't apply them at regular intervals, you could be compromised. People attack your administrators and your users, or some may get compromised because they know how to attack them, and then they have all other access. The path through which they come to the databases, they could be untrusted, unverified. If you don't do it properly, again, you could be attacked. Legacy application is the other problem we all face. Some of these apps were built on Oracle 10G or 9i, and they haven't been checked after that. And at that time, the word SQL injection was not even defined. That word, by the way, came in 2002. So if you have apps built before it, they definitely are not, they didn't take care of the problem. Even today, we run into many cases where the app developer didn't take care of it. The problem with that one really is that if I have access to the through the web, I can attack your database all the way through. And since all applications run with full power, it's very easy to attack or compromise your database. Okay, so these things you gotta do, right? Now there are many other things which people have difficulty in doing. For example, the with every patch or with something you do, your configuration has drifted, and you don't quite know what it looks like now because there are lots of knobs. There are, because database is a complicated, finely tuned machines, right? And you got lots of users on it. Some of them high privileges, low privileges. Who knows who they are, what they are doing? Do we really know who gets in, gets out? What do they actually do? We don't know what they do. We don't know where our data has gone out and what it is that we actually own. Unless we know what we own, how do you go about securing it? Difficult. Because remember, as I was saying before, it's about risk management. And to manage risk, you have to understand the sensitivity of your data first. And certainly the last one is that as data leaks and goes out to test and dev. There was a case recently where one of the large financial institutions in US, the CSO found out that the data had left their production databases and gone into test and dev, which were not really been protected. The moment you discover it, it's like all hell breaks loose. Now you got to go and fix it all within a very, very short time. So these are all the things that, again, this is not new if you all know it, but just to kind of summarize it all, these are the key things that we're going to worry about. And for this talk, I think we need to, again, we can't solve every problem very, very quickly, but some we can. So I say that, can we solve things that we can very quickly with low cost? That is what this talk is all about. And that's the second half of this picture here on the right hand side is what we'll try to address. So really, so this is a three-pronged strategy I want to talk about, right? As I was saying earlier, we got to apply the risk management principles and starting by understanding the value of your data. That's the first thing, right? Understanding the risk profile and protecting those key assets first. And even there, start with foundation first. You can't do everything on one day. Start there and then move from there. And then leverage the built-in security of the platform. Like Oracle, we got lots of built-in security features. Use them. Use a baseline security. And lots of best practices available. If not, certainly as we go and use the SIG, it should be available, right? And it's in our interest to make sure that everybody knows it, right? The last one I think is the most interesting here really is that you have done the first two, but you still are stuck with lots and lots of tools, lots of technologies, complex deployments, and no time. So we gotta simplify our deployments to the best we can, unify the controls to the best way possible, have single view into the risk profile, and automate like crazy. With that, I want to talk about Oracle Data Safe. Uh, Last Oracle World, pretty much to the date, to the date. Uh, Larry Ellison, company's chairman and CTO, he announced Data Safe in Oracle Open World. And the main value here really is that it's a unified database security control center on the cloud, right? It does five things, but these five things are really critical, from ensuring the configuration security, ensuring that you understand who your users are, what it is they actually carry, understanding what they do, understanding your data, understanding how much sensitive data you have, and then masking it if actually needed. If these things can be done very, very easily, right? You would save a lot of time. You'll mitigate your security risk. You'll be able to meet your compliance requirements. And this is available to everybody. It's not just for the big banks and financial institutions or the governments or the other uh, telcos. but everybody can use these features very, very easily. Defense in depth for everybody, and no special security expertise needed. And this was so critical that Larry decided that we'll make it available to everybody at no additional cost. All right. Um, so let me get into a little bit of detail here as to what it is. So essentially, this is the dashboard that you get on all those 5 things. It's a dashboard, one single dashboard that talks about assessment for the configuration, the users. It helps you understand how much data you have, what type of data you have, where is the activity happening, do we have alerts, and where the status of the service itself. It does it for all the databases that are registered with DataSafe. So I'll just walk through these things really quickly. So the first is, as you'll expect, database security assessment, and this is based upon your the popular DBSAT. We took the DBSAT essential rules, moved them onto DataSafe, but we added lots of features in here. We made sure that it's not just, you don't just run it once. We can run this multiple times. We can look at the drift over time. It's very easy to drill down to see what's actually happening, give you full visibility, control by control, compliance rule by compliance rule. It's much, much easier to actually use. And you can see your story across all your databases, how many risks you have everywhere, right? Uh, and this is a how we look at the diff report, right? So you can run these reports periodically, and if you see a diff, it would tell you which particular category was the risk in. Is it in auditing? Is it in configuration? Is it in user accounts? And some are just advisory, just so that you know. Some are, you need to look at it as to what really changed. But in this particular case, there are no new high risk, medium risk, low risk, and that's great, right? So typically when people see these reports, they'll really try to rectify the issues, and some they'll accept the risk. So here, so once you have done it, we only look at delta, what is different. Otherwise, you'll go crazy trying to spend all your time figuring out every single thing. And here we also show you what exactly got changed when we mean evaluate. Well, here there are more people who are being removed from what rules they had. I think that's good, but it's still important for you to look at what has actually happened. So in this particular case, actually, we are improving security if you look at it, right? Second is the user risk assessment, understanding who are the users on your machine, because as I was saying, we don't quite have a great idea. It's like, who's there? When did they last log in? Did they ever change their passwords? What roles they have, what privileges they have. So we give you a score. We'll tell you this user is privileged. Better make sure that their IPs are coming from known IPs. You look at their last login. You change the passwords frequently, and that you audit them. So this helps you minimize, understand your risk, and then helps you minimize that risk. Then comes activity auditing. You know what they are. So first thing issue that we had people talk about was they don't quite know what to audit. So instead of second guessing it, we have built it in the tool itself. And by default, we turn on certain things like basic auditing. Yes, you need to do it every single time. If you don't want to log in events, which we think you should, but if you don't want to have certain auditing for certain login users, it's your choice. And what type of audit records you want. Every admin who comes in, we should, I think, audit them every single time, and for users too. So, and we can also enable certain compliance reports, compliance based standards. So depending upon what you're looking for, here is one single place where you do it. And after you have provision as policies, it's easy to create summary and detailed reports of what's actually what you can show to your auditors. And then you can filter that. Sensitive data discovery is the other big one. We don't really know what is where. So here we help you drill down into what data you have. We look at, we of course we use regular expressions, but we look at your column name, your column comments, and the actual data itself, and trying to figure out what it may be. And then the tools would allow you to pick and choose in the end, because there could be false positives and false negatives. So you can pick and choose and say what it really is. And once you have done it, and we build and we may give you many of these checks by default. We don't want you to hack around this stuff, right? So 125 different types are there by default. So most likely what you're looking for is already there. But you can add your own rules too if you want to. You can add your own categories. of things. Like here, we have categories are biographic, identification, job, and so on. But you could add your own ones too, right? In the end, we tell you how many values you have. This way, you can decide what is most important to you from security perspective. And once you have done it, it's kind of, to me, that hard work is done. After that, we know what kind of formatting we should use for masking. Do you replace them with random numbers? You have table values to replace them. You want to do some compound masking. You want to do some rotation. There's all kinds of shuffling you can do. So again, this is all inbuilt into it. In the end, we give you a masking report, right? So it's very, very powerful. And the whole demo, actually, you'll see it, and you'll see us do it. You don't type anything. It is just point and click. All right. So what this means, if you are on Oracle Cloud, what this means is this, that we have a lot of security as part of Oracle Cloud itself, which we get from the cloud infrastructure. And for autonomous databases, we also activate many of these controls, like TDE is part of it. Database Vault is part of it. We restrict your SQL commands. We apply network security to it. We do network encryption. We give you tools to do label security and redaction. We look at audit logs coming from the network side. And we look at auditing from the data safe side. Guys, if you don't mind, I saw that there's a question. We'll handle the questions after my talk is done, okay? If that's okay. So this really, so DataSafe is extending the applicability of all these rules and checks, and now it becomes a lot more fortified. Now, the most exciting part is that this was until now available only for cloud databases. You had to be on the cloud, right? But now the same feature set, same everything, same tool, same service available to you for your on-premise databases. So there are tens of thousands of databases on the cloud, but on premises is perhaps in millions, right? So same feature set is now available to you for on premises. And it supports your standard edition databases, your enterprise edition databases. You could be cloud at customer, you could be Exadata, you could be running XRCS, autonomous, the whole range, everything. The entire database real estate can now access DataSafe. One single tool, one single place, available as a cloud service. So I use the term 1, 2, 3. So this is simple. So the challenge is really to establish connectivity between DataSafe and your databases. If you're on the cloud, it's really simple. It's a few clicks. If you're on premises, there are some more clicks, and Russ will talk about it. Then you register your database and you're done. It really is as simple as that. 1, 2, 3 to be able to secure your databases with those 5 things all in one. Uh, the key question is, I'm sure you're thinking, how do you connect? Would I have to poke a hole in my network? Would I allow traffic in? And of course not. So there are 3 ways or 4 ways to actually do it. If you're on Oracle Cloud, we support the public IP, we support private IP, and the whole bit. So that's the easy one. That's already solved. If you're on premises or cloud at customer, we give you multiple ways to do it. One is that we allow you to connect the networks through either Fast Connect, which is a dedicated link between our cloud and your data center, or you create a VPN tunnel between these 2 networks. This may be somewhat involving. That's one approach, and for many of large customers, that actually makes sense. But for many others, they're not quite willing to involve the networking team, kind of getting them involved in the whole process. Instead of that, we have an on-premises connector. You install this on one of your local machines, which can then go and talk to multiple databases that you may have. And here, it actually reaches out to DataSafe. It's not the other way around. It's not that we're asking you to poke a hole in the firewall or do all those rules checking. This is like going out on HTTP. Just the way you make HTTP call, it's exactly that. This is currently in limited availability, and I would invite many of you to join the program and try it out, right? But this essentially gives you very quick ways to have on-premises connector installed on for your on-premises databases, and then you are back in action. With that, I want to give controls over to Russ Lowenthal, who will walk through this rather quickly in the limited time that we have. Russ, please take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipin. Just a quick check to make sure everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Outstanding. So this is a live instance of Oracle Data Safe. And what I thought I might do is walk through very briefly the 5 core features that Vipin just talked you through, showed you on the slides. And then we're going to talk a little bit about that limited availability program and how you can connect data safe, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. We're going to talk about one of the ways you can connect data safe to your on-premises database. So real briefly, if you look on the left side of the console, you will see that there are 5 different features. The first one we're going to look at is security assessment. This is one of my favorite things that DataSafe does, because I usually deal with a lot of databases, and one of the challenges that I always have to face is, how do I know after I review a database and I make sure that it's set up the way I want it to be, that 2 minutes after I left the room, somebody didn't come in and change something? Well, DataSafe helps you with that. And what DataSafe will do is it allows you to take a database and run a security assessment on it. When you look at the report from that security assessment, what you're going to see is very similar to the results that you would get back if you ran the database security assessment tool. We'll go through, we'll look at your configuration, we'll look at your users, we'll look at privilege assignments, how you're managing passwords, and we will tell you anywhere where what you are doing doesn't match what we would normally consider to be best practices. So here I've run it on mine just so you don't have to watch that happen. And it's come back and it's told me I have one high risk issue. And that high risk issue is, in my database, I haven't done a backup. All right, I'm going to choose to accept that risk because I'm doing my backups outside of RMAN, or maybe I'm just doing a cold backup. You know, I don't need to worry about that. I have 5 medium risk things. Let's see. I have got a couple of initialization parameters, and I've got one of these that is not really set as well as we'd like it to. That is my sec protocol error trace action. I've got it set to none. Normally, I would want to trace, log, or alert that. I'm going to choose to ignore that one. I've also got a couple of issues with user accounts. I've got a few of my database users whose default table space is set to system or sysaux. Well, system in this case. I'll go change that, but for now, I'm going to accept it. I've got a few things that DataSafe thinks are sample schemas. It just so happens my application uses HR. So even though that's a normal sample schema, I'm not going to worry about it. And it turns out that Vipin's dog's name is Scott. And Scott has a log into the database. So we're going to leave it at Scott because, you know, you don't want to aggravate the boss's dog. But so basically, I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at everything that DataSafe reports, and I'm either going to fix it or I'm going to choose to accept it. In my case, I'm going to choose to accept everything. So what I do once I choose to accept everything is I'm going to go through and I'm going to set this report as my baseline. And I've done that. I have, scroll up a little bit here. I have my baseline set to a report that was done back on the 14th. Okay. Now you'll notice that I've run a lot of these assessments. That's because I run my assessments every week. I don't have to go out and manually do this. DataSafe does it for me. If I wanted to run them more frequently, I could. If I wanted to run them less frequently, I could. But I do it every week, and I just happen to do it on Sunday when there's not a lot going on. Now that I've got this set as my baseline, if something changes, if there's a modification in my security posture, then I'm going to see that. Let's go ahead and do something dumb and see if DataSafe catches it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grant select any table to a database user called New York Nick. Now, I would not normally grant select any table. Select any table is a global privilege. That just means I didn't take the trouble to find out what privileges New York Nick actually needed. But I've gone ahead and done this. Maybe, you know, maybe there was an emergency and I just had to get things going. I don't want to wait until Sunday for my assessment, so I'm going to run my assessment now. And DataSafe is now logging into my database and it's checking all of those rules. This is going to take just a minute or so, maybe 90 seconds. We'll let it finish. But if I've done my job properly, this no that you see here, where we're talking about, does DataSafe differ from my baseline? This no is going to change to yes. And when I click on that yes, again, if I've done my job properly, then I'll be able to see that what has happened is somebody who shall remain nameless has granted select any table to Nick. And it looks like I also made some unified auditing policy changes a little bit after my last assessment too. But here's the key one. Somebody's granted select any table to Nick. So I go back to my security assessment and I have a choice. If I really meant to grant select any table to Nick, then I accept that responsibility and I set a new baseline. Or more commonly, what I would do is I would say, revoke select any table for Nick. And I would go out and rerun my baseline and I would see my no switch back to a yes. I think because I had the auditing change, it's not going to do that. I would actually have to reset it, but I'll do this and we'll come back in, look later, and we'll see what our yes turns to. Should just show me the audit thing. All right. Next thing we want to look at is user assessment. You may remember that when Vipin was going through how databases get attacked, the number one way databases get attacked is through compromised user accounts. The bad guys get in using DBA accounts. They get in using application user accounts. They get in using power user accounts. And so we think it's important that you understand what your risk is for each of your database users. And so we tell you that. We go out and we assess your users and we look at their privileges and we look at when they last logged in and we looked at when they, let me just add a column here, changed their password the last time. And all of this goes into calculating a risk score. And what we're telling you with this risk score is that if this user account were compromised, this would pose a really serious danger to you because it's critical. If I were to go down and I were to say, and we're sorted by in order by risk, you may have noticed, if I were to look at someone who's got a low risk, we're saying, if this user account were compromised, the attacker would have less ability to inflict damage. Let's look at a low risk user. So here we're going to look at TA Tammy. And she's low risk. She has no roles and no privileges, which means she can't even log in. This is a schema owner. This is not someone who's going to be hacked. Let's look at a high risk user, and we'll pick John Schaefer here. So here we have no roles, but look at the system privileges we have. We have the ability to change triggers. We have the ability to alter any assembly. We have create library. We have drop any role. We have drop any table. We probably have select any table. I mean, this guy, if his account gets compromised, this is someone who could take all of the data from the database, unless, of course, we had database vault protecting it. But this is someone who we really need to protect against. So what do we do with this knowledge? Well, we have a couple of things we can do with this knowledge. One thing we can do is remove unnecessary privileges, right? Another thing we can do is audit this user. This is a high-risk user. Perhaps we want to audit everything we can do. He does. Another thing we might do is use database vault policies to control what this user is doing. But it all starts with knowledge. You have to know where your high risks are. And this is what user risk assessment does. There's one other thing that user risk assessment does for us, and that is it tells us what activity the user has done. Now, this is just a test database. I don't have any real activity going on, but if this is integrated with database audit, if this user had been doing anything, there were audit records generated, I would show audit records and I would be able to go in and see what this user had done. Okay. Let's just find an example of one of those. Here's one right now. I know this user will have audit record. Well, I thought this user would have audit records, but it does not. Either way, so user risk assessment, critical part of security. Next thing we're going to look at is sensitive data discovery. For sensitive data discovery, what we want to do is we want to make the decision how much risk is involved in this database. What kind of sensitive data is here? And to do that, I need to know what data there is. Now I'm going to go out and I'm going to go ahead and do a quick sensitive data discovery request. And I'll just say I want to run this sensitive data discovery. I'm going to bring back sample data. We don't store this. This is just presented to you on the screen, but why not? I'm only going to run for one schema just because the length of time it takes to do sensitive data discovery depends upon how much data you're looking at. We ship with around 125 different types of sensitive data that we look for. And this is everything from Aadhaar numbers to credit card numbers to bank account numbers to passport numbers. I'm going to go ahead and say I want to scan for all of them. And DataSafe will now go out and it will examine my database, and it's going to look through and see where it finds sensitive data. Now, I don't have to stay on this screen. I can go do something else. This is just a background job running, but I only picked one schema. This is not going to take very long to do. We're already finished. We'll continue on. And what I can see here is, as soon as my report comes up, that I have discovered some sensitive data. And what I found when I looked for sensitive data was that in this particular schema, I have something that looks a lot like a US taxpayer ID. I have something that looks a lot like a Canadian taxpayer ID. I have what appears to be personal data, first names, last name, email addresses, road type addresses. I have just a lot of data that's in here. So I get to go through and look at each of these types of data and decide what I want to do with it. Now, we show you this information in two views. Right now, I'm looking at it from the sensitive data view, but I could also look at it from a schema view. In other words, based upon schema objects. So you see, I've got a couple of tables here. I've got the employees table had some sensitive data. My users table had some sensitive data. My error log looks like it has some sensitive data. I've got a supplemental table, some roles, and some labels. I'm going to go through and deselect a couple of these because I don't really care about the sensitive data that's in these. But I do care about my supplemental data, which is credit card numbers, routing numbers, bonus amounts. And I also care about taxpayer IDs, first names, last names. Let's see, is there anything in here that I'm not worried about? Yeah, that should be good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just go with all of these here. And I can now save this and generate a report. So here is the data that was sensitive. And I don't know if you noticed, we not only showed you the fact that we had sensitive data, we give you a sample value of that sensitive data and a row count, so you know how much sensitive data you have. Because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with our customers and they have been focused on the fact that there's a credit card number in a database. And they're so focused on protecting that credit card number that they forget that they've got a whole nother schema that's got 1 million customer records or 2 million customer records. And yes, one single credit card number is bad, but 2 million customer records is probably worse. So this is the type of information we found, and we've decided it's sensitive. With this, I can save it off as a spreadsheet. I can save it off as a PDF. I can go through and rerun my sensitive data discovery periodically, or I can continue on to mask the data. And by masking the data, what I mean is replacing the sensitive data with fake data. So let's go ahead and do that. We've already done our sensitive data discovery. I'm just going to do this on the same database that I was on. We're going to list out our sensitive columns that we found and see which ones we want to mask. And here again, just in the interest of time, how long this takes is dependent upon how much data I mask. I'm going to go through and I'm only going to do national identifiers and public identifiers. And let's see, is there anything else I want to grab here? I'll go ahead and get these credit card numbers and bank account numbers. All right, so that's what I'm going to choose to mask. I'll confirm my policy. Now notice that when I'm doing this masking, I didn't go through and tell DataSafe how I wanted to mask the data. And that's because when we designed DataSafe, we designed it in such a way that every time we find sensitive data, we have a default masking format associated with it. Once I click submit here, I'm going to go out and update all that data. Let's see what I have now. So I just happen to have a copy of those tables. If I check my copy, currently first name in the original, first name in the copy, they're the same. Last name, same. All of this information is the same. Okay, let's go ahead and submit this. And again, how long masking takes depends upon how much data you're masking and how complex your masking format is. In my case, I just use the defaults. The masking format is very simple. You're going to see when this is done that rather than go through and perhaps do a lookup of names or something like that so that I replace Justin with James or Sudeep with Sunil, what I've done is just put in random arbitrary strings, random strings. But the data when I'm done, I do have my security risks removed. And the really nice thing is, once I'm done here, I can go back and make more complex masking scenarios to where I get data that looks a lot more realistic. Now, this is probably about 2/3 of the way done. We'll give it just another 40 seconds or so. But I do want to emphasize that what I'm showing you is the absolute simplest kind of masking. And DataSafe, it's designed to be simple, but it's also designed to handle complex requirements. So I could do a much more sophisticated masking, really to meet just about any requirements. Conditional masking, format preserving. Should be getting close. And we're starting to see things happen if you're following my screen. And don't worry about the 81 steps. They normally go quite quickly because, again, I chose fairly simple masking formats. All right, while this is running, I did see a question that came in over on Q&A, and I think Vipin and Manish have been quickly answering these, but the question asked about sensitivity. When I get done with this, I'm going to go up and show you the library and show you how we assign categories to these. My masking has finished. I can go through and report on it. And what I can see when this report is done is that I masked about 5,300 values in 8 different types. And I can see the tables and columns that were masked and how many rows were masked. But that's kind of boring. What I really want to see is before first name and last name, these were the same. Let's see what they've changed to. And what I can see is I've changed Teresa to a random string. I've changed Miller to a random string. These numbers have changed. The data that I said not to change, I didn't say to change address, so that stayed the same. But if I get over to where I'm looking at my credit card numbers, well, my credit card numbers have changed. My routing numbers have changed. And so with masking, I have completely removed the sensitivity or the columns that I've decided are sensitive from my non-production copies of the database. And I can now turn this over to a developer for testing or for development without having to worry about security in that database. The last piece of DataSafe that I want to demonstrate for you is auditing. DataSafe allows you to set audit policies. So right now I'm auditing pretty much everything, but I was able to control that by going in here and just telling it which audit policies to define. I get all of the Oracle pre-built policies. If I have created company-specific custom policies, those will show up here too. I also get to assign what I want my alerts to be. Like maybe I want to alert on failed logins, or maybe I want to alert when somebody changes a user. And I can provision those out to the database, and I'm done just like that. With this alerting information, I am able to collect audit data from my databases. And here I have all of the audit records, and I can see what's been going on. So I can see, for example, that right now somebody named DS Dollar, which is my agent user for DataSafe, has gone in and has just checked the audit trail. If I look and say, let's find something that's not a select. So we're going to filter this, and we're going to say that operation event is not going to be equal to and we'll get rid of all those selects because we don't care about the selects. So here we can see people logging on, logging off, altering session. We can see, oh, there were 19 login failures. What are those 19 login failures? We'll look at that. Where did those login failures come from? Somebody tried to log in as sys, and they did that from this IP address, and they were using standard database type authentication, and they failed. So all of this information is available for me at the tip of my fingers, and most importantly, it's in a format that's really easy to search and work with. All right. So what you've seen so far are the 5 features of DataSafe: security assessment, user assessment, sensitive data discovery, data masking, and auditing. But there's one other thing I want to show you. Vipin talked a little bit about things that we've been doing with DataSafe, and one of the projects we've been working on is extending DataSafe beyond databases in the Oracle Cloud to on-premises. And Vipin told you that there were 3 ways to connect to an on-premises database. One is using something called Fast Connect, which is a persistent, high-speed connection between your data center and our Oracle Cloud. Fast Connect is a for-fee service. If you have it, it is the Cadillac option for connectivity. So if you have Fast Connect, you should use it. Another option is VPN Connect. VPN Connect is just what it sounds like. It's a VPN between your data center and the Oracle Cloud. Not as good a throughput as Fast Connect because you're routing over the public internet, but at least you're going over a encrypted tunnel and it's protected. And again, if you have VPN Connect, you can use that to connect DataSafe to your databases on premises. But a lot of people don't have either of those. They still need to connect to the database. And for that, we offer something called the on-premises connector. And deploying the on-premises connector is really, really easy. It's 3 steps. You're going to create the connector, download and install the connector, and then provision the DataSafe user in your database to where the connector can connect in. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So we go back to our test environment, and this time we go over to the OCI console, and we will scroll down to DataSafe. And here we are with DataSafe, and I'm going to create an on-premises connector. So I'm going to create this on-premises connector, and we will call this the security SIG, and we're going to create it. And this goes out, and what we're basically doing is we're creating a point within OCI that an external connection can come to and then a specialized software package called Connection Manager, which I think, as Vipin has mentioned, has been around for a very long time, that can be downloaded and installed. We've done this, so let's go ahead and download this bundle. We have to give it a password to protect it. So anyone who has to be a more complex password than that. So because we don't want anyone who gets this to be able to just go out and use my connector. So we're creating the connector or the package. We're going to download that, and then in just a second we're going to go install it. Okay, we're going to save it. And let's go over to an SSH session. And so there's what I just downloaded. I'll unzip it. And here's everything that I need. I have got a README. That tells me everything I need to know. These are the files that I downloaded. Here are the prerequisites that I need to have. And here is how to install it. Now, I just happen to be using my prerequisite was Python 3, by the way, 3.5. I have both Python 2 and 3. So I've got Python 3 aliased as Python 3. So we'll just grab this and we will install it. And we have to give it that password. And at this point, the on-premises connector is being installed. It will automatically be started. Port 1560 is unused on this server, so I chose to just use the default port. Also, before I ran the install, I had gone out and checked to make sure I met the prerequisites, which is I had to have Java 1.8 or higher, and I had to have Python 3.5 or higher. I have completed my installation. Let's just check and make sure everything is up and running. And what I can see is I do have a Connection Manager instance started, listening on port 1560. That is up and running with a gateway service that is now connecting into DataSafe, but that connection is routed over port 443. And I want to find let's go to CMan home. Let's go to network and admin. And our cman.aura. And here you can see that we're making a TLS connection. We've got our certificate all set up. That was protected by that password we created when we did created our bundle. Again, routing over TCPS, and most importantly, over port 443. So as long as your internal network allows connections to HTTPS, to standard SSL, then you should be able to use the on-premises connector without having to do anything else. At this point, everything's done, but let's just, for the heck of it, go back in. We'll go back into DataSafe, and we're going to register this database. So it just so happens that I want to do a database, and I'm going to register. And I'll call my database the AIOUGA database. And this is not a cloud database. This is an on-premises database. I give it a description. Choose my resource group. I'm going to use on-premises connector, and the on-premises connector is the one that I created. What do I connect to? Let's find out. my IP address. My listener just happens to be on port 1521. My service name is ORCL. And again, just in the interest of time, before I started this demo, I went out and I created a user called ds$admin, and I ran the deployment script, dscs privileges, and granted this user privileges. That script is included in the on-premises connector package. So we give you everything you need, okay? But what that means is this is already done. So I can do ds$admin, and I can say what the user's password is. We'll test it. Successful. And I now have my on-premises database connected into DataSafe. But you know, it's COVID. I am working from home. So I want you to think about this. The database that I'm connecting with is running on a server that is on my home network. It's actually running on a virtual machine. My networking for the virtual machine is NAT. So that 10.0.2.15, that is non-routable, obviously, because it's a 10.0 address. And I am able to punch through that NAT to get to the database because it's to get to DataSafe because it's an outgoing connection. But it gets better. My home network is also a NAT, right? Because I don't have my own class of IP addresses. So I have my ISP connection that comes in, and that goes through a NAT. My ISP connection is also network address translation. So I am going through 3 layers of network address translation and 2 different firewalls. But because of the way we architected this, I've made my connection and everything is up and ready to go. I can now go through and I can do security assessments. I can do set up my audit connections. Everything that you do with DataSafe is now available for this on-premises database. So if I go in, we give it just a second. I want to find there's my database, and say I want to assess now. It's going to go out and it's going to do its assessment. While this assessment is running, remember I said I promised you I'd take you back and show you that my change. I'm still different, but what should be here now is not my bad grant of select any table. What I should see now is just that one audit setting that I changed a little bit earlier. And sure enough, that's what shows. I go back and fix that, or more properly, what I do is I accept that risk. And now my yes has turned to a no, or it will turn to a no here as soon as it refreshes, and life is good. Let's go see how our assessment's going on my home database. Still running. It is a little bit slower because it has to route over the internet, and I'm going through quite a lot of hops here, so there's a bit of latency. You would normally do this in a data center that is more physically close to you. I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere right now, so I have a little bit more latency. But that's it. That's DataSafe. And what I hope you've taken away from this is, we demonstrated DataSafe and we demonstrated the on-premises connector. And Vipin, with that, I guess I'll turn it back over to you.
Cool. Thank you, Russ, for walking us through these simple steps. Let's see, I can share my screen. Okay, 1 second, guys. Let me just. Okay. All right, so we just went through this stuff. Cool. So, right, so really trying to unify all these tools together, one single service to use, deploy. So, where do you go next? Well, we suggest that really enable DataSafe, try it out on a couple of databases, run these jobs. It's really easy. It could take you 10, 20 minutes, half an hour. Really, it's not much time because Russ just showed it to you. And next month, maybe try all the features, the capabilities on your real databases and see how it looks for you. And if you need help from us, we're here. So I think plus these links will be available to you. You can go and look at it. afterwards. And so really kind of, and there are lots of details available here. You can watch the full overview. There's FAQs there. There are security blogs with full details, full uh, information right at your fingertips. And certainly, if you go to this particular link on the right hand side, you can talk to some of the Oracle people and they'll actually help you show through these things once again and help you set up an account. Okay. And certainly, I'm looking forward to seeing many of you on the security SIG part. Any questions, any concerns there, we're there to actually help you. So just kind of in brief, really. So I talked about security databases can be as easy as 1, 2, 3, and I hope that I kind of made my case that we can't just tool away like crazy. We gotta use some simple tools which help you for your on-premises databases, for your cloud databases, and also as you migrate from your on-premises to cloud, whenever you want to do that, the same security rules would just apply. There's no new change, right? So this way you secure all databases, cloud, premises, everywhere. And somebody asked me, would we support Azure? At some level, we don't really care where your database is. We just need to have, you need to have a way to connect from wherever you are back to data safe. And data safe is a public service, so you can do that using TLS, so you should be able to. And you don't have to wait. You can do it right away. As I said before, hackers, auditors don't wait for anybody. So this way it will give you immediate value, nothing to manage, remove complexity entirely, and no training needed, really, honestly, right? So hopefully this shows you in an hour or so time that we took to really get things going very, very quickly. Um, and that's it. We have a few more minutes actually for Q&A. I'm happy to take them now. Either you can speak up or you can type them in Q&A. Either way works.
I think most of the questions are answered during the session itself, right?
Yeah, we tried to, yeah. But again, anything else kind of comes up. So I think what I'm looking at, so the other stuff I wanted to share with the team here is that now data save is available in India data centers, right? Until recent past, it was only in US, by the way. But now it's available in India, so no data sovereignty issues. Your databases could be anywhere in India, but the data safe instance itself would be in India, right? So from performance wise, you would not see the latency that Russ had experienced. It should all be really, really fast. Also to say that currently we do 5 services, but you can imagine this is a platform, internally platform that we have created. And my goal certainly is to be able to make it powerful as we go along. I'm not here to announce anything yet, but you can imagine that that's what we'll be doing. Plus we're making like really continuous innovations. Every single 15 days we come and improve things. So you'll be on a very up-to-date platform as you go along. Um, so as I was saying before, you guys are tinkerers. I mean, really, I would invite you to play with this stuff. The on-premise connector is new. You guys always like to play with new things. It's in limited availability. So please try it out. Give us your feedback. We'd be happy to take your feedback and improve the service at the same time. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Vipin and Russ, for covering a very detailed session on security. Security is very important topic. Most of us ignored as a DBAs and developers. I think now time to get into very deep dive sessions, more security sessions going forward. That's why we launched SIG. Um, you know, I'm sure we will make it very, very successful going forward with your help, Vipin. Again, we really enjoyed. Thanks for your valuable time and support. And let me change to the next slide. Okay, so dear community members, right? You can thank Vipin, Russ, and Manish by using Oracle Security Twitter ID. This is very important, right? And this is the only way you can connect with speakers and other attendees who's attending this webinar. Again, we are missing all this face-to-face interaction, networking due to all this virus problem. But I'm sure we will be back very soon. So I think the Sangam is coming in December. One of the things we are planning to do is a hybrid cloud conference, like people can attend online, people can attend. One of the model we are thinking is if you're based out of Bangalore, you can go to one of the location and attend as a group, right? Again, subject to government guidelines. That's what one of the thing we are planning. And so it's very important to provide a feedback. Again, this is not a speaker feedback. For example, you can ask Vipin and his team what you want the next session, right? So go to this particular link or scan this QR code and submit your questions, right? So that's one thing. And also, what is happening next week. So actually, unfortunately, we are unable to fit that, what is coming next week, but currently we are working in progress. So what is coming next week, very high level. So we are getting an analytics session, and also we are planning to launch analytics SIG, right? And apart from that, we have a dedicated day on 26th of September. We have a special MySQL day with lots of hands-on and demo sessions. So please join. It's scheduled on Saturday, so there is no escape. So you can you can join from home. There's no work pressure. So that's why we schedule on Saturday. And going forward, we'll also do a dedicated day on security. It all depends on you. With your interest, we will definitely help you. Um, you know, with that, thanks once again, Vipin and team for supporting, and thanks participants to attending. I'm sure this is too late now. It's 9:30 India time. Um, have a nice day and nice evening. With that, we are closing this webinar. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.